USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to a new Zeta report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We are live, usually on Mondays, first Mondays here on the Blog Talk Radio site. And you can also find us on the YouTube channel. Just look up Zeta Report and keyword USAEBN. You can find us there. We're joined this week and every month by Nancy from ZetaTalk.com and PulseShiftNing.com. Nancy, are you there?
I am. I'm looking forward to today. We're going to give people a blitzkrieg through everything we've presented in a little more than a year, because I think it's been more like 20 months that we've been on the air together monthly, Andre. But let me just first say our disclaimer. In partnership with USAEBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate, but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. Questions from the chat and issues raised in the chat will be addressed toward the end of our hour after the main feature has been presented. So today, in keeping with what is usually done on a new year, the start of a new year, we're going to do the year in review. Actually, as I mentioned, it's almost 20 months from the start of when Andre and I were making monthly appearances here. The range of informative topics on Earth changes not addressed in the regular media and in-depth survival discussion is immense. We will mention the date of the presentation each time, so you can go into the USAEBN archives or access the YouTube documentation on the NancyLieder channel. So, Andre, how do they find all this stuff in the USAEBN archives?
Well, if you're listening to the show live, typically what we do with this show, first Mondays of every month, we do the live audio show on blogtalkradio.com. USAEBN has a channel there. It's blogtalkradio.com/USAEBN. And you can scroll through the archive there, and Zeta Reports will pop up down the feed. Also, if you check out the Facebook page for USAEBN each month, it's also posted there with the direct link to the Blog Talk Radio. But like you said, too, what we also do in partnership with Zeta Talk is to produce the YouTube video, which is just our audio feed from the Blog Talk Radio site, directly onto the NancyLieder channel on YouTube with a lot more photos, because we're limited with some of the photos that we can put up on online for the audio, but the video on the YouTube has a lot more documentation and graphs and that sort of thing. But I will say, though, if you want to look it up, looking up by the date is probably best. Nancy and I were talking before the show. We've got a lot of informative shows out there over the past, like you said, 20 months. It's over a year, with different tips, survival tips, or how to view Nibiru, or what pole shift looks like for North America, or how to survive earthquakes, or how to survive grid down, that sort of thing. And as we go through the show today, we'll reference back to the dates that the show aired. So you can look on both places. You can look on the Blog Talk Radio site, blogtalkradio.com/USAEBN, or on the YouTube channel, NancyLieder on YouTube, and the dates and the keywords will all be the same. So that should help you there. But with the Facebook page for USAEBN, we also have photos there and links to the YouTube and to the show. So long story short, you can find a lot of lot of avenues to get your information, but we're going to go through this, and like I said, the dates that we talk about are the dates of the shows that aired.
Yep.
So.
Okay, guys, buckle up. Here we go.
Buckle
On
up,
March
yeah.
2nd, we're going to do survival stuff first. On March 2nd, 2015, we did off-grid energy options, direct current, reversed alternators in cars and electric tools. Wind and water are always available. Various windmill types, lawnmower windmills, windmills from car parts, steam engines, bike gen and crank appliances, wood gas and methane, solar panels and carbon arc lamps when the light bulbs are gone. Everything you need to get your lights back on in the very worst case. I mean, the grid is down. You can't go for parts. What are you going to do? Junk all around you. Hopefully you've looked at this YouTube or this session, March 2nd, 2015. Next, April 6th, 2015, survival mindset. If you got the right mindset, it's a piece of cake. If you give up and throw your hands up, well, what are you going to do? Great Depression era hobo camps are an example. Communes of the 60s, potluck suppers or communal soup pot, clothing racks. Everyone contributes. Volunteering is best. Disability is an attitude. Hey, just look at all these dogs with missing legs. They don't know they're missing a leg. Action plan is essential to thwart depression. Tasks for everyone. Natural leaders will emerge and women and children see solutions readily. If PTSD hits, there are homemade straitjackets. That's an easy solution. It's Nancy's recipe. Turn a white shirt backwards and tie the hands behind. Community is essential to block gang activity. That's keeping everybody busy, April 6, 2015. Next, September 7th, 2015, Survival Tips Overview. Think naked and afraid. You got nothing. The tornado threw everything in the air. You can't go anywhere to shop. The phones are down. What are you going to do? Civilization has been lost. Starting fires, from scratch. The flints, Clean drinking water. Desalination. Eating bugs and worms. They're so nutritious. It's just there. Mother Nature actually provides. Fish hooks. So inexpensive. So important. Eating predators. Like bears or sharks. Hey, eat them first. Rats and squirrels. They're delicious. Weeds for vitamins. Mushroom safety. Seaweed versus algae. Duckweed, highly nutritious. Kudzu. The kudzu qualities, you can live on kudzu. It's a pea plant. Tent cities. Tiny houses, very much in the news lately. Bamboo, so versatile. Bermed homes. Insulate, etc. Keep you warm, keep you cool. Hand tools. Houseboat flotation devices. Growing Power, which is a Milwaukee guy, incorporated that and has everybody in inner cities growing these wonderful veggies, growing soil, eating earthworms, growing earthworms. The guy is doing everything right. Look up to it. Growing Power. Look into it. City gardens and hydroponics. That was September 7th, 2015, Survival Tips Overview. Next, houseboats, December 7th, 2015. Be a modern-day Noah, the theory of buoyancy, plastic bottles and inner tubes, bamboo and lightweight wood. Homemade plans are available at buildahouseboat.com. Rohingyas from near Bangladesh, pushed out to sea by various countries. Nobody wanted them. Their desperation is an example of what can happen when the waters rise. Houseboat community examples. Mangrove Island examples. Operation Atlantis is an example. Junk houseboats. This is my favorite. You can make a houseboat out of anything. Freedom Ship for the Wealthy. Waterworld lesson. Remember that movie, The Waterworld? sinking land history.
Oh.
It does happen. Houseboats and seaweeds available for eating. Solar, wind, and water power are available. Noah's boat, the real Noah's boat, it was round, by the way, and my Finnegan Fine story, which is all about a guy on a houseboat. Right, Andre?
Yep, that's a good one. I will say that the water world lessons, the great floods of the past pole shifts that we talked about, and we'll get to the signature episode, but you can see a lot of folks really taking it seriously with different ideas for floating cities, floating houses, that sort of thing. Hurricane-proof, round, floating houses and communities. I've seen a lot of that pop up recently, and I think it might be, a couple of hints that, there might be water coming or deluge or what have you.
Yeah.
Houseboats are a good way to go.
Oh, you got to think like that. They're very romantic too. You can pick up anchor and go. You don't like your neighbors, etc. And you grow some tomatoes on the deck, and you fish, and I mean you can have a good life, really. All right, so that was December 7th, 2015, houseboats. Next, January 4th, 2016, vitamins in nature. Scurvy, beriberi, pellagra, and rickets are caused by deficiencies in vitamins that can be found in nature. When you run out of vitamin pills and fresh fruits and vegetables, meat and dairy are no longer available in the stores due to shortages. Don't despair. Here's where to find them in nature. I was astonished when I did this study. There isn't a single essential vitamin that you can't get by eating bugs and weeds. I mean, if you do that, you're set. You're just covered. Bugs and weeds are sky high in B vitamins. Weeds have vitamin C, and eating an animal raw is what keeps the Eskimos going. Be aware of your options. I know it's boring, but cover that if you haven't seen it before. January 4th, 2016. It's good news. All right, March 7th, 2016. Katrina Revisited. The dangers in floodwaters, such as the Red River floods in North Dakota. Katrina in New Orleans. The Sandy, devastation in New York City and New Jersey. Water came roaring into the subways and the like and messed with their electricity. And lingering floodwaters in Indonesia. Polluted and infection-laden waters. Electrocution dangers. Lack of electricity. Fires that cannot be extinguished when the pumps don't work. And snakes and crocs as neighbors. It's not just the water, folks. It's a mess. Particularly because floodwaters almost invariably involve mixing sewage, with what you consider clean water, and then you get all these illnesses, dysentery, etc. Wow, what a mess. The flood dangers are March 7th, 2016. Katrina Revisited. Now, model communities. Do we have some examples of cooperative communities, where everybody volunteers and everybody has enough to eat and everybody shares? Yes. Now, some of these work and some of these don't, and we did an hour on what does and what does not, what made them fail if they didn't, what were their drawbacks, what were the lessons. And this is on March 2nd, 2016, model communities. Eco-villages, Findhorn, Enright. Enright was probably the most successful in Cincinnati. Neighborhoods growing all kinds of vegetables, having their chickens run around, and everybody shared food, shared eggs, etc., and exchanged clothing and the like. And it was completely non-commercial. They don't sell this stuff. They just cooperate. Huge neighborhood area, too. All right. These are more famous names you can type in. Eco Village, Findhorn, The Farm, Crystal Rivers, Soldiers Grove in Wisconsin, Yamaguchi, and the Colony series. It goes through primarily what the failures were, what went wrong. In many cases, it was the attitude or the strictures. Maybe it was commercial, maybe it had the the gloom of kind of like slave class, like you go in, you give up all your worldly goods, now you're a slave, that kind, and then it would fall apart, So worthwhile if you're thinking of starting a community, find out and learn from other people's mistakes. That was May 2nd, 2016, Model Communities. June 4th, 2016, martial law versus national emergencies. What's the difference? The Posse Comitatus laws, that's a U.S. law, meaning the Department of Defense just can't run amok in the U.S., not unless there's an emergency. And first, we do other things. The Coast Guard is exempt, thus Katrina rescue. Remember when the Coast Guard came in to Katrina and General Honore, oh, what a honey. And the reason he could do that was they didn't have to call martial law for him to be able to do that because the Coast Guard is exempt. Recent martial law examples in Thailand and in the Ukraine. Examples of national emergency in the U.S. in 2005 and 2009, because usually what happens is the president calls a national emergency, big tornado, big flood, the National Guard is mustered perhaps, and they go out, and this is not martial law. Martial law is the last resort, in the U.S. anyway. These other examples in Thailand and the Ukraine, it's not. It's more like Thailand has martial law declared every other year. They get fed up with their political leadership. The military steps in, they straighten it out, they revote, and now they're back to civilian. It's kind of like round robin. Okay, the FEMA busy schedule. They have a busy schedule. It's like a national emergency. Call out the National Guard, rely on FEMA. This is not martial law. The DOD is considered a strong arm method, and I'm not sure when we last had martial law in the U.S. I can't even remember. It's not around the corner. People say, oh, martial law. No, we're a long way from that. Okay,
well,
that was all
when you think about it, too, what we did talk about in that July 4th of 16 episode was also the fact that most of these national emergencies that will call out the armed services, whether it be the National Guard or some sort of DOD or like Coast Guard, like you said, these emergencies are very localized. For instance, Katrina was, the Gulf states and especially New Orleans and Louisiana. It's very difficult for a national emergency for United States national martial law to occur. I don't know if we have enough military to cover that many cities, to patrol them. So a lot of this gets built up in, your alternative media sites and that sort of thing. But what we can look at is, for instance, the FEMA website, I think it was the 31st or maybe earlier than that, but last week put up a bulletin, help FEMA get prepared for asteroids. Real thing. So, there was some of these things tie together, and some of them may be clues, and I'm not sure, but actually the FEMA, was tying into the executive order that came out about a month ago about space weather, and they're talking about asteroid preparedness on the FEMA website. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, they all do.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. Our FEMA friend never talks about asteroids that much.
They're pointing to the skies more and more, which we want to touch on toward the end of the hour if we have time. Yes. Now, the next subject, okay, so it was July 4th, 2016, as Andre mentioned, martial law, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Earth changes. Jumping back to August 3rd, 2015, we talked about pending disasters in North America. Signs that the New Madrid will start ripping. The Caribbean plate is tipping. Methane at the Four Corners area in the U.S. Quake swarms in Connecticut and Oklahoma. Deep crevasses in Mexico. The Bayou Corn sinkhole, very dramatic. And Jade Helm 15 with Walmart ready for disaster. All the preparations that are going on in the signs that, and it's gotten worse. If you go into Oklahoma quakes and the quake swarms up and down the west coast, and it's just exacerbating. It's ready to snap, really. So this was on August 3rd, 2015, but it reviews all the instability in the North American continent. All right, then on November 2nd, 2015, we talked about climate change impact, Mexico's superstorm, permafrost melting, global warming refuted, Earth wobble influence, jet stream torque, sea lions starving, starfish dissolving, bark beetles migration, crop shortages, drought and deluge, tornado increase, albino increase, deformed frogs, Morgellons disease, bee colony collapse, pithovirus up in Siberia, fish and bird deaths from methane. By methane, by the way, that's what kills them. The birds dropping out of the sky, and fish. It's a methane release because the rock is being, and it releases methane trapped in the rock. Sagae antelope deaths, again methane. Sleepy Hollow, Russia, fascinating story. That all these people just fall over asleep, swollen brain. It's due to methane. Bighorn Mountain crevasse. So it's talking about November 2nd, 2015, the climate change impact, which everybody says, oh, global warming, warmer air, which is complete BS. Not so. So you want the details, you want the proof. November 2nd, 2015. June 6th, 2016, we did a jump there, didn't we? Is it safe to fly? Why are fly-by-wire planes going down? With all electronic systems failing, that's what's happening. This is electromagnetic pulse, which the Zetas describe is something like lightning. It's a very specific and focused. It's not like spread all over the place like the weather system has high pressure and it's not like that. It's more akin to lightning, Zeppo. They love electronics over water, over a distressed rock, and Zeppo, there it goes. And we're going to give you the details. This happens on plate borders where electronics screech in the rock, arcs to the magnetic tail of Nibiru. These flight paths that went down dramatically, Air France 447 in 2009, MH370 in Indonesia, German wings flying into the Alps, and CERN had trouble with their electronics too at that same time. MS-804 flying along the African and Eurasian plate border, and just before it got to Egypt, boom, went down, circling around like a wounded bird. And most recently, not included in this June 6, 2016 broadcast, Tu-154 in the Black Sea, classic case, swung out over the Black Sea, and whammo, everything. And what's characteristic is all the electronics stop working. Complete electronic failure, or the key electronic failure, and yet they say, oh, it was the weather, or it was pilot error, or some nonsense like that. This is a very good documentary on electromagnetic pulse and how it works. June 6th, this last year, 2016. The jet stream, daily wobble proof. This is on August 1st, 2016. This started in 2004 after Nibiru arrived. That's when we started getting the wobble, and we started getting this rapid change in the weather, and people say the sun isn't coming up or setting in the right place, etc. It's a figure-8 pattern if you look down over the North American pole. The Inuit Indian observations, they say it's too light, it's too early. The sun is not supposed to be up or be here all day like this. The midnight sun rays in Alaska on FAA cams, you can see this, over there near Fairbanks, and there you see the sun come up briefly at midnight and go back down. Not supposed to be happening. The Denver cam, sun too high, jet stream twisting, Coriolis effect, and how that factors in. U.S. heat dome. Weather maps show the latitude comparisons. What's going on in this latitude and then around the world on the same latitude in another country. Earth orientation charts show the Earth's tilt change and increasing and increasing. This is where it's pointing at what star system, and it means that at some point during the day, the Earth is tilted over way too far, and increasingly so. Personal observations. Wobble moment is rapid. And people have said they are laying on their backs looking at the moon, and all of a sudden go whoop, it moves. And same with the sun. The shadow, they're standing at the side of a building waiting to be picked up, and they see the shadow, and the shadow goes whoop, and it's a few inches different. It's pretty quick. It's uneven. There's an uneven ice loss at the north and south poles. The wobble is worsening, but we're not near the last weeks as yet. But don't get complacent. You should get ready for self-sufficiency. That was August 1st, 2016, a very good primer on what to look for daily wobble proof. So you can argue with people who say you're nuts, and you don't need to get prepared. You do need to get prepared. Okay, that was August 1st. November 7th, 2016. Can the Internet be shut down? The Internet is like a phone system. Your unique number is matched to your name in the phone book. So a domain name is matched to a unique IP number. Just as the phone works over a phone line, your access is controlled by a gateway, your ISP. There are various ways you can lose your Internet, but the solutions are ham radio, packets by shortwave, and build your own servers. Unix is a good operating system and free. Now, this was recent, November 7th. I got an email, which I'm pleased to say, from some woman who said, and it was just one person. It was nice to get that feedback saying, "Oh, at last I understand the Internet. It was wonderful, thank you." But I'm not, maybe kind of boring. That was November 7th, 2016. For those who understand it, but if you don't understand it and you think it's a big mystery, perhaps you could also gain something from that hour. All righty, so that's all the Earth changes we presented, Andre.
Mm-hmm. I will say with that Internet outage episode 2, it kind of helps to explain some of the clues behind how DDoS, or directed denial of service attacks, or actual hacking can happen through backdoors and that sort of thing. So, it might be for the younger generation, the millennials and the more technically inclined people probably review, but for some of the folks that don't dig real deep onto the nuts and bolts of the Internet, it's good source there too. I've gotten some feedback on that. My mother said, "Oh no, I get it," and she took she took a computer class in college, and so that was years ago, of course. But
glad to know. Yeah. Well, good, because that was my goal.
I also wanted to mention too that a lot of the supporting information that we talk about, you can find also through just a general search on zetatalk.com or poleshift.ning.com. There's a search bar there. It's a Google custom search bar. And you can search by keywords like what we were saying before, martial law, or you can talk about Internet outage or off-grid power. Those are some things you can look up for, on those websites also to find the actual articles where the Zetas would have comments on it, or the actual news links as well. So that's another source.
Yeah. Thanks. Very good. I'm glad to know it helps some people.
Yep.
So the rest of the hours, according to my list here, is what I call Zeta Talk supported, meaning I reference Zeta Talk. And, of course, the rules of the game here are whenever I do that, I have to say, in the opinion of the Zetas, that kind of thing. Because until it happens, which it increasingly is happening, it's only opinion and not fact. And we go back as far as May 4th, 2015, in which we talk about how Pangea spreads apart plate movements, what the Zetas call a scripted drama. They say when the plates move, it's because they've moved that way in the past. In some cases, you have subduction going. So anytime there's a compression there, it's given which plate is going to go under and which plate is going to slide over and all that. So plates move according to the scripted drama written in history. India runs under the Himalayas, which you can see. I mean, what makes those Himalayas so darn high? And they have like seashells up there in the rock up there. This started during the Pangaea breakup, the Nepal quake reaction in Japan and the Philippines, and the Atlantic is pulling apart. Land off Europe and the East Coast is drooping, as evidence below the waves shows. You can see this. You can see this by the shallowness of the plates, off of New England, off of the East Coast, and off of Norway and the UK. You can see that it's more shallow. So at one point, that stuff was above the waves, but as the Atlantic pulls apart, according to the Zetas, there is less support at the plate edge there in the middle of the Atlantic, and it droops. The Caribbean is sinking. At one point in the past, you could trot over from Florida to Venezuela on land, and you can see the roads under the waves. As South America rolls, which is a Zeta prediction and is in process, the tip is anchored at Antarctica, at the Antarctic plate, but the top part rolls to the west, and as it does so, it shoves down the Caribbean plate, and therefore it sinks, and that's how that happens. There's a land bridge to Australia sinking too, and it used to be that they could trot from Eurasia, like Vietnam, over to Australia all on land, and that's getting pushed down under the Indo-Australia plate, and it's a standard thing that happens, and they've had a lot of sinking, since 2004 or 2003 when Nibiru came into the inner solar system. The widening Atlantic allows Africa to roll too, and it rolls to its top part to the east, which means it's kind of sinking and dropping. The Zetas have said that Gibraltar will increase by 125 miles, and the Sinai will pull apart by 50 miles. We haven't seen much of that yet, but that is in the cards, according to the Zetas. North America is a flat top. If you look from the North Pole down at it, you see a straight line from Japan right across the Arctic over to Iceland. It cannot roll. Therefore, it creates what they call a diagonal stretch. Mexico is pulled out into the Pacific when the Atlantic widens and the Pacific compresses, and that puts a bow stress on the North American plate, which will snap with a New Madrid adjustment, creating a diagonal adjustment. And this is all plate movement history with a lot of diagrams and stuff. If you want a primer on that, go back to May 4th, 2015. The next, the 3,600 years signature. This is, of course, back into the ancient Sumerians who said Nibiru comes through every 3,600. Zechariah Sitchin's translations. Well, you can see it in the geology of the earth. You can see it in extinction of animals. It's all over the place, obvious. And the last time was the Jewish Exodus, when the Red Sea Noah turned the rivers of the Nile blood red, which of course is just the red dust falling from Nibiru. Guess what? That was 3,600 years ago. And you can go back, etc. There's a San Andreas movie, which is predicting quakes that are akin to this 3,600-year signature. Terra exploded in the Mediterranean during the Jewish Exodus. Huge volcanic explosion. The extinction of the mammoth on Wrangel Island. Last known mammoths 3,800 years ago, as best they can guess from carbon dating, blah, 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 blah. Pretty close to 3,600 years. The Greenland ice is so heavy. Why? Why is Greenland covered by ice like that? Well, it was the last pole. That's what the Zetas say. The crustal shift is implied. Velikovsky books cover this very well. Oh, highly recommended. Earth in Upheaval when you want the geology, and Worlds in Chaos if you want the mythology. sea level drop or rise. He reports 3,500 years ago, when he wrote the books, almost 100 years ago, that Daly went out and measured that all the beaches worldwide showed a 16 to 20 foot drop, at the same time. Where'd that water go? You can see that something big happened, right? The Madagascar extinction caves, where they're trapped in the water, and how to read geology. So this is an excellent primer if you want to get familiar with a 3,600-year signature. Lots of diagrams, lots of photos, lots of references. June 1st, 2015. July 6th, 2015. Evidence of Nibiru. Sitchin's translation of ancient Sumerian texts. The winged globe as a symbol in the 2009 appearance on Soho. It actually showed up. The ancient Sumerians had the winged globe, a circle with huge wings on either side. That was their symbol for Nibiru. Well, Soho, where they usually airbrush out any evidence of Nibiru, allowed that one time to come through, and there it is. Son of a gun, it looks exactly like the ancient Sumerians' winged globe. See July 6, 2015 for this. The internet scams and Google Sky examples, they're always trying to point you, because they don't want you to run off panic, screaming in the street, quit your job, empty your bank account, and not do your job fixing the plumbing or whatever. So they tell you, no. And they point you in all the wrong directions. And so I go through some of these scams on this July 6th, 2015 show. Star charts, the 1983 Washington Post articles where they really did find it, and as soon as it hit the front page of the Washington Post, December 31st, 1983, the cover-up started. Magnetic disruptions and lack of sunspots is another proof. Crazy weather, daily Earth wobble evidence, Manhattan Henge, where they say, the sun sets and there it is shining down this, Fifth Avenue or something. And it doesn't anymore. It's off. And they try to say, too cloudy, we had bad weather, But no, not so. They can't get it to line up, so the Earth is wobbling. Viewing Nibiru with filters, many personas, in other words, the second sun, if you catch it at dawn or sunrise, you can see what we call moon swirls, which go down as long tubes swirling around each other. And when those tubes face Earth and sunlight filters down through them, bouncing back and forth, it's like a flashlight. They are very bright. They're almost brighter than the sun. Venus looming, because Venus's orbit is irregular now. And Noah's warnings. What caused him to start building that boat 2 years before the waters started rising? And earthquake safety, what to do. So this is a very good coverage of a lot of subjects. Again, a primer, July 6, 2015. Moving to a year ago, October 4th, 2015, the Zeta's advice on going through the 7 steps exercise to examine your safety of your current location. These 7 steps, are telling you first, find out how safe your individual location is. Then you find out where you might go. Which way do you head? What direction do you head in? What about flooding? Will you survive the pole shift but just deal with flooding afterwards? In which case you have time to migrate or put together a houseboat, or are you right on the coast where you're likely to be wiped out with a big tidal wave, which can go 500 to 600 feet during the hour of the pole shift. So what we did during this hour was walk through several different locations and say, if you lived here, what would going through the 7 steps exercise show me? And those were Nairobi, Kenya, Mumbai, India, the Northwest Territories of Canada, Guadalajara, Mexico, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Moscow, Russia. Each of these dealt with different issues. So I wanted to, to get you into it, and then you go do the 7 steps. This was October 4th, 2015. You can get there on the poleshiftning.com. They have front and center, in the center of the front page when you go there, take these 7 steps. Click, and you'll be guided through. You can find out the elevation of your location. They have a link, They hold your hand the whole way, so do that. Okay, that was October 4th, 2015. Moving on to February 1st, 2016. Nemesis. We're beginning to get in to the announcement about Planet 9, right? The Sun's dark binary twin is 18.74 Sun-Pluto distances away, per the Zetas. They've said this since the beginning of the Zeta Talk saga in 1995. Now they came out with the discovery of Planet 9, and guess what they said? There's something out there, a gravity draw, that is 20 Sun-Pluto distances away. 18.74, 20, Anyway, there was a lot of confusion about Planet 9, whether it was a big massive object or several objects. Is it near? Is it far? But they had it right where the Zetas said in their chart that they gave us in 1997. They said, when the infrared group went out and looked, and the Washington Post reported that they found it, they said on the outer reaches of Orion, they didn't say just where. But the Zeta said, the lower part of the bow, right there, bing, and they had me put it on that map. Well, guess where they found Planet 9? They said the aphelion, the farthest point away, right, is, bing, exactly the same spot. So what I'm telling you is they're trying to say Zeta's right again, and instead of covering it up the way they did in 1983, we're going to admit it, right? Okay. And they also started talking about other things like Earth 2.0. We're being prepared to think of other worlds that could harbor life, etc. And so and kept talking about exoplanets. We've got so many of them.
Yeah.
They can harbor life. They're real close. All of a sudden there was a flood of that last January in 2016. Yeah.
Trans-Neptunian objects, isn't there throughout human history, hasn't Nibiru/Planet X gotten like 18 to 20 names for each culture anyway? And now we have to give new... It's part of disinformation. The trick with disinformation is there has to be a partial or a kernel of truth in it, otherwise it doesn't sell. So if there's a kernel of truth, like, we found this planet, it's about 20 Sun-Pluto distances away. Well, you didn't figure it out for yourself? Well, sorry, we kind of told you, so you're on your own. Bye, we're going to our bunkers. That's... that makes me angry sometimes, but I turn that angry into helping other people to figure it out, because what Zeta Talk and the Pole Shift Ning has done very well is to explain sort of those prongs that we talked about on that show and a couple of other shows that we'll talk about in a second. But the Planet 9, all these other, they're not really disinformation, but it's, if you don't pay attention, you won't catch it all. So that's how we step in between.
And the prong terminology comes from the Zetas saying, because Obama tried, to get in front of the public and say, all right, there was a national security edict that said, written by Reagan, saying, don't talk about the aliens, don't talk about Nibiru, because people can't handle it. We know, we're handling it, we're having our bunkers and all that, and we're ripping you off and taking your money and building bunkers, and that's where we're going to go, but you can't handle it, so we're not telling you, which is so unfair to the common man, the taxpayer. So he tried, and he was blocked right and left, emergency broadcast method. They cut the wires. Oval Office address, it's got a time delay. And finally, it became what the Zetas called a multi-pronged approach, where various astronomers around the world, a huge team, like multi-tentacles, was popping out with talking about exoplanets and this and that. And Zeta said, this is something that cannot be stopped. You can't cut away. It's out on the internet too quickly, So, okay. So then that was February 1st, 2016, when we first introduced that. In
Right.
April of this past year, we talked about Nibiru visibility. And I give many photos of, the moon swirl, second sun, and what I call the string of pearls. When the moon swirls line up one behind each other, they look like a string of pearls. And this has popped up now and then in various photos, and even on SOHO, which is, of course, the government's, images out there, the SOHO satellite, and the haze of red dust, which just keeps increasing. Okay, that was April 5th, 2016. Now, we come to September 5th, just this last September, history of the prongs, and here's where we go through it, the exoplanets in odd orbits. They start talking about, is a rogue planet just floating out there, which doesn't seem to be going round and around the sun. Well, Nibiru has a binary sun of our sun, which is dark, unlit. Our sun is lit. So our sun's binary is out there in the direction of Orion, just parked, and we're here parked. And Nibiru comes through in a sling orbit, back and forth around both of them, which is extremely odd. And so they're trying to get everybody used to this idea, saying rogue planets just traveling out there. They just seem to be lost, trucking away. Okay, brown dwarfs and failed suns. Well, our sun's binary is a failed sun, and Nibiru itself has some kind of a thing going on where it emits some light and heat, and that's how the Anunnaki can live on it, because it is the home planet of the Anunnaki. And the Dark Energy Survey, which came out, most recently, and that is, guess what, in Chile, and they use infrared, the same method they used in 1983, and they introduced this by saying, the WISE system and the Hubble, et cetera, all these, they look way out there. But the Dark Energy Survey has found exoplanets close in, very nearby, that we missed. In other words, if you're staring at the horizon and you never happen to glance down at your shoe, you don't notice if there's a possum sitting on your shoe. And that's what they're trying to imply. And they're trying to get away with forgiving NASA and all these other people for not noticing that this big planet moved in 2003 and is visible to amateurs, and everybody under the sun can see the thing parked there, and the moon swirls and all that, and how bright the sun is from all the reflections, etc. So this is a very good primer, not that old, September 5th, 2016. You want the history of the prongs, and we are like a breath away from admitting that Nibiru is there. All the Dark Energy Survey has to do is say, well, we've reviewed, which they are doing. We've reviewed our stuff from the past few years, and we found one in 2003 over here, and it seems to be tracking here, here, here. Now they'll say, in a retrograde orbit, but they've already introduced the concept of a retrograde orbit. You talk, Andrew, I'm going to cough.
That's okay. I think what is also interesting about some of this prong release too, it seems to be that some of it is actually looks to be a little bit of a CYA for NASA and the government, saying, okay, well, we were looking out way far away with the Kepler and the WISE survey, whereas the Dark Energy Survey is also an infrared-based scan. It's once you start to figure, once people start to figure it out, that a lot of the stuff that's on the mass market media or the television or what have you, that a lot of it is pretty much fake news. That when you look at this Planet 9 coming out of this direction, Niku with the retrograde orbit, you put that retrograde concept with the 20 Sun-Pluto distances that they talked about, this other one before. If you put these three together and you start putting the puzzle pieces together, you can figure it out. But in the meantime, the people that are putting out the information are scattering the puzzle pieces all over the place and saying, well, we did our part, we CLIA, we made sure everybody didn't get in trouble, thanks, bye,
they're going to leave it to us, Andre. You and me and
Yeah.
Zeta Talk, etc., to say, here's all the
there's
pieces
a lot of
together
others
because
too,
the Zeta.
but
Yeah, from the very start, they said that when Nibiru comes in, it first comes in and tries to go in the regular method, the regular orbit of all the other planets in the sun itself, which is counterclockwise, looking down from the North Pole, and it switches as it gets really close, and they showed that on their chart that they issued in 1997, becomes retrograde, and why, they described why. It starts skipping rope with sweeping arms of the sun and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, this is classic, Zeta Talk. And Zeta Talk had it out there from the start, So they're getting ready to point and say, oh, well, look, Zeta Talk has said that from the start. Let's go ask Nancy. At which point I expect to be in front of my Skype, in my jammies, not combing my hair except maybe once a month, right, with a hot cup of coffee, trying to explain to people all this stuff, which I'll be happy to do. However, I end up saying when people email me all the time, type your term into the dedicated search engine and boom, it'll come right up. Because people panic. They don't want to do that. They just want, tell me, where do I go? What do I do? So we're trying to say, okay, the prongs. History of the prongs, September 5th, 2016, informative. In October of this last year, Aliens Among Us. We had some fun with this because we had the little Peru blue alien, which they talk about people getting used to the idea. You will see aliens. They'll come up and help you. Don't be panicked. And this cute little guy floated, went in and out of dimensions, and it was all caught on video. Okay, so we covered E.T. and Close Encounters, how they spoke the truth. And well-documented cases like 1989 Varenga's encounter in Russia, 1996 Brazilian Roswell, little girls met this guy in the woods and the military swept in and cleaned everything up, the 2008 Peeping Tom video here in the U.S., the 2010 California Nightwalker video, which is caught on they walking through somebody's yard, and known to the American Indians, these long-legged guys that had long legs because their home planet was swampy. 2011 Skinny Bob tape, absolutely genuine from the Roswell days. It's an old tape, and you could it's so cute, his little forehead wrinkles and all that. He's just so, it's real. 2014 Tall White's admission, this is service to self. Bad news, aliens that were trying to intimidate the U.S. military, and they had one guy that was assigned to them who just practically went nuts, I guess, having to very, cruel and aloof kind of people. And 2011 little alien photos and video. The same little guy showed up in London, in the U.S., in Mexico, and down there in Argentina. And you know, why? Because it's the same little guy. And the Zeta said it's because he's so cute and frail and so little that he's non-threatening. And people get used to the idea, like E.T., poor guy, he needs our help, instead of something to run and scream about. And then, of course, the 2016 little blue alien. 2011 skulls in Cuzco. And what they show, these are real skulls of real aliens. The Star Child DNA, even though this poor guy, Loy Pei, was, beaten on his entire life. He had the DNA run. It is not human, and you can look at that skull and see that it's alien. Anunnaki structures around the world. The Anunnaki are another race of man. They're not more advanced than we are, although they were more technologically advanced before us. They were rocket ships around and back and forth and went to Mars and all that. Proof on Mars and the moon of the Anunnaki. Anunnaki hybrids, they do exist. There's some in Patagonia, very tall guys. An Anunnaki mummy in Tibet. Thor legends, of this weapon, that he could throw and whatever. Well, it was, not a hammer, obviously. Troll mummies in Tibet and the trolls in Europe, like Austria. Dopa stones and pig dragons. They indicate a type of fat snake that would help the Anunnaki. It was not our density. It was like a star children. They were advanced. And they could levitate things. And they helped the Anunnaki lift all those heavy stones, heads in Easter Island, all that. The War of the Worlds is a scare tactic. because they're people that are in the establishment, they want to control information. They don't want you to learn the truth from aliens. They lost that war. More than half of humanity is chatting with aliens on spaceships and learning the truth. Yoda was real. He showed up drawn in a manuscript and showing that he was over there in monasteries in Europe at some point. Stephen Hawking is wrong if he says they're all robots and they're all evil, don't talk to him. The guy is just a scaredy cat. I'm not implying that he's not smart, but just because he's smart doesn't mean he has courage. He is not a contactee, and if he is, he calls the wrong guys, because the type of aliens you meet is dependent on what's in your heart when you give the call. If you're concerned and empathetic and worried about others, you get the good guys, the angel on one shoulder. If you're thinking about how to shaft people, you get the devil on the other shoulder. He apparently got the devil and scared him, so don't listen to him. He's wrong. All right. JFK's message, he was really intending to tell people about aliens, and that's why they killed him, because they thought, no, we have to retain control of the populace. October 3rd, 2016, Aliens Among Us. And our most recent one in December, mythical creatures and real critters, werewolves, Wisconsin man-wolf, wolves, grizzlies, New Jersey devil, the dragons, T-Rex, yes, it does exist down in Australia, 25 foot tall, running off with cattle that happen to wander in there. Brontosaurus in the Congo, yes, they still are there. Crocodiles, they're really from another era. Wild boars, vampires, Mothman, which is sort of like dragons brought to Earth to terrify man, and they don't really live well because this is not their native planet. Bigfoot. He's out there. He's being protected. An earlier version of man, and not mean, not good. They're nice guys. Don't try to go and shoot them. Bigfoot hybrids. There's 2 or 3 cases. This is very fascinating that lived, and most of them die. But very interesting. They're very telepathic. They don't speak well, but they always win at poker. And chupacabras, real dangers such as dog packs and cougars. That was our last one this December, and boy, we ran through it, didn't we?
Yeah,
Andre and I said, if there's time, but we were going to say this whole thing about the Russians hacking and all the rest of that garbage. This is fake news. Assange came out and said, no, the DNC and the Podesta emails. Who gave him the DNC emails was poor little Seth Rich, who got shot execution style in Washington, D.C. He was a DNC worker, and that was his comeuppance for giving it to him. And the Zeta said, you want to look for who it was WikiLeaks, Anonymous, ourselves, the Zetas, et cetera, it's not the Russians. So there's a group that was backing Hillary Clinton and George Soros and all this, and they wanted to, New World Order, they wanted to be able to control the world and get control of the U.S. military, and therefore they feel that since they lost getting Hillary in, now they have to start World War III so that Obama can say, I can't give it to Trump because I have to declare martial law now, quick.
Right.
Something like that. It's the last desperate maneuver which will not work. So that's it. Andre, I've done my piece.
Well, I want to add to that a little bit, too. Just be real careful about where you get your news on social media or the internet or mass market media, television, what have you, radio. A lot of this stuff you see, it'll be built up and built up and built up. It's like, why are they talking about fake news so much? Why are they talking about fake news? This is what the questions that pop up in my head when I see this stuff. And I'm like, now I understand. It's getting closer to the change, and they want to make so much confusion out there, just like Planet X and pole shifts. Just enough confusion with a little bit of truth that they can, nothing to see here. These are not the droids you're looking for, sort of thing. But in the meantime, the Zeta Talk accuracy is off the charts. You can always check that out at zetatalk.com. sister website for that is poleshift.ning.com, where you can do the 7 steps exercise. You can look through the safe locations application and PDF, and also definitely use the Google search, the custom search tool, whatever you want. You can look up JFK. You can look up Yoda, who is an actual real species. Real he is. So thanks a lot, Nancy, for your time. Again, you can find this audio as part of the video presentation that will be on the YouTube channel for NancyLieder. Just look up Zeta Report on YouTube, USAEBN.org for preparedness information, and stay safe and team up. Be service to others. That's the way to win in this game, right, Nancy? Right, Nancy?
That's the way to get high-tech assistance from the benign aliens. That's the way to grow your soul so you're more wise and massive. That's the way to do better in the next life. Remember, it's not what happens in this incarnation, the aches and pains you might have, or what little bit you can scratch together for yourself. It's how your soul fares and how you're registered in the book, as you progress through your incarnations. So you want to get on the winning team, and you want to get the bennies. Start caring for each other. It's called service to other. Think of others as often as you think of yourself. And I've been told recently that when we give people survival information, that we are in fact being service to other and helping, and that our souls, Andre, you and mine, are growing larger, more wise and massive because of that. Yes. So you guys out there.
So subscribe and share this episode, right?
And become wise and massive and grow in the right directions. Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, what a great show for the 2016/2015 episode review, year in review. 2017 will keep going strong, and hopefully we'll get the rest of the news organizations to help us out with that. Right, Nancy? It's been doing it long enough, since 95 for you. And
yes, they know where to go. They know where to go for their material. Yes.
Exactly. Thanks again. Stay safe out there. For more access to this show, again, you can check out the YouTube channel for NancyLieder. Just look up Zeta Report, USAEBN.org for your preparedness information, and also Facebook, Facebook.com/USAEBN. Stay safe, America.